All right now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the program the fabulous Radney Foster. Radney, can you hear me all right?
Absolutely, Paul.
It's just a great honor and a great pleasure for me to welcome you here to the radio program. We sure enjoy your music a lot.
Oh, thanks very, very much, man. Anytime anybody's listening to it besides my parents in their living room always makes me happy.
Well, I know your time's limited here with us, so maybe if we start at the beginning, would that be all right?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
You were born in Del Rio, Texas, and of course we'll get back to Del Rio, Texas in a little bit, but I guess how old were you when you first learned how to play the guitar?
I want to say about 10 or 11 years old. My dad played. My dad was a lawyer in Del Rio, and it's a fairly small town, and we were a long way. It's hard for anybody nowadays to sort of believe this, but we were a long way from television, and it was a big deal to even have like 2 channels on cable television.
Sure.
A lot of little western towns just didn't have that until really the late 60s. So when I was a kid, entertainment was, somebody would bring the potato salad, somebody would bring the barbecue, and somebody bring the beer, and everybody brought an instrument. And I fell asleep many a Saturday night on somebody's lap, listening to my dad and all of his buddies play music, not professionally, but sheerly for fun. And so that was a big influence, and it's how I started learning to play the guitar.
And had you already been singing before you learned how to play the guitar, or did that come afterwards?
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't remember not singing. I mean, my parents, both sang in the church choir, and Daddy sang, for a lot of fun, for, those kinds of things. And he would get out his guitar and sing little lullabies to us. We'd beg him when we were kids, Daddy, play some songs before we go. We'd all be in our pajamas, and he'd play Roger Miller songs or some other little funny kid song, or Peter, Paul, and Mary's Puff the Magic Dragon, anything that had 3 or 4 chords that he could, wrap his head around and figure out.
Do you have a country singer that you were influenced by the most, or one of your favorites growing up?
Boy, that's hard to say. I mean, as a singer, I always, I certainly was influenced by Buck Owens,
fabulous,
and Merle Haggard, but to be honest, probably those were more because of the songs and the style. It's like, if I had to pick, singers, it's really tough to think about, because I as a kid, I was playing in rock bands like every other kid in the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, we were turnip truck hillbillies, living in West Texas. I mean, we didn't know any better than to know that you couldn't play a Merle Haggard song after you played a Steppenwolf song. We just played what we liked, and so
sounds great.
So I probably count as much somebody like a Buddy Holly or the Everly Brothers or the Beatles as singing influences as much as I would, as much as I would somebody from the country world.
Sure, and so you ended up leaving home to attend college at the University of the South in Sewanee, Tennessee. And,
that's correct.
It was while you were at college that you first started to perform as an acoustic duo act with someone there, and I guess you were writing all the material for the group at that time.
Well, I wasn't really writing all the material, but what happened was we would do I don't know, a whole set of, we'd do 2 or 3 sets a night at little local student-run nightclub, or there was a couple of little sandwich shops / beer joints kind of places there, and you could put your can out and charge a $2 cover charge and hope that it didn't exceed your bar and dinner tab. And but I would, in each set, maybe if we did 10 songs, I might have written 3 of them. And one night a guy came up and he said, he said, boy, I know all these other songs, and I know that's a Guy Clark song, and I know that's a, you know, Everly Brothers or this anything, you know, whatever we were doing. And he said, but I don't know, what is that song and that song and that song? And they were really great. And he said, I'd love to get, you know, who's the artist that does those? And my friend started laughing, and he said, you can't, because he wrote them, you know. And so he said, man, I don't know. This stranger says to me, I don't know anything about the music business, but, you know, one of my college roommates is now a record producer and engineer in Nashville. And I was like, yeah, right. You know, he's like,
Sure.
no, really. Give me your name and your dorm room number, because those are really good songs. So I did, and I didn't expect to hear anything. And of course, 2 weeks later, I got this message on my dorm door from Brown Bannister, who was oh my gosh, had produced records for Amy Grant and you know, B.J. Thomas and Kenny Rogers and all these big stars, you know.
Yeah.
And he said, man, I hear you're really good, and I need to come hear you. And he drove up to Swanee and heard me in my dorm room, and said, I think you ought to think about doing this for a living. And I slept on his couch for a couple of weeks when I first moved to town, and so we kind of get started from there. I owe him a lot.
And wasn't it around 1985 that you signed on as a staff songwriter for MTM?
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you secure a writing deal?
Well, back then, it was really different. It was actually, there just weren't as many guys probably writing songs as there are now here in Nashville, and there weren't as many publishers really either. It was just a little smaller. So, you know, but it was tough because you kind of had to have something going on before somebody would sign you, or most of the time. But you could get single song contracts if you'd let a guy pay for the demo. You know, if they liked it, you go write with. There'd be some guy who you met at a writer's night, and they would already have a record deal, or they'd already have a publishing deal with somebody, and if you wrote songs with that guy, then, you know, maybe they might like it and, you know, pitch it, and you could get a little action going, you know, and once you got it cut, or a lot of times they'd say, well, we're going to do a full-blown demo on that song, but, you know, in order to pay for your half, you know, you either got to come up with $250, which of course I didn't have. Yeah. Or, you know, we'll take the publishing and do it. So I would do that, you know. I just like, well, it's better to have half of something is better than 100% of nothing, you know. And so eventually, this woman who was at MTM, they you know, Mary Tyler Moore actually used some of her television money to start a record company and a publishing house. I didn't know that. Here in Nashville, and as an investment, you know, purely as an investment. I never met her, but you know, this woman who was running the place, you know, had heard about me, and I got an appointment to come and play her some songs, and she really liked what I was doing, and she said, you know, I can't pay you much, but, you know, I can keep you from starving to death, and you'll need to write your tail off. And, you know, I think I made more money waiting tables the year before than I did, you know, when I was writing my first year writing for MTM. But, you know, I didn't have to say, yeah, I'm a songwriter too. You want fries with that? You know? Yeah. You know, I had credibility all of a sudden. You know, I could actually get in somebody's office at a record company and play them a song.